That was a quick and superficial introduction to the skeleton of a web page, i.e. the HTML. As we discussed, the HTML lends structure and content to the web page. Let's now take a look at the aesthetic rendering, i.e. the look and feel. And that's something that we do via CSS. That brings us to our second example, which is all about transforming the skeleton into an aesthetically pleasing and human readable version. This relies on the CSS. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Think of CSS as styles. These styles are applied to HTML elements and they dictate how those HTML elements should look when they are rendered by the browser. In other words, think of the styles as a set of rules which govern only appearance. There are rules for different types of HTML elements. You can specify any number or any complexity of rules that you like. These rules are called styles. And you specify these rules using a language called CSS for cascading style sheet language. Let's start with our first set of styles, i.e. our first CSS example. We will take basically the same page that we just worked on, but we'll now add a set of styles. In other words, a set of rules which will govern the appearance of the HTML that we just wrote. We will examine how the appearance of the web page changes as a result of these styles. And here on screen now is the combined HTML plus CSS code. What jumps out here is the presence of a new HTML tag called the style tag. This is a tag which tells the browser that it's going to contain styles or rules governing appearance. You explicitly specify that it's a style of type text/CSS, and that in turn helps the browser prepare for the contents of the tag. The type attribute, which contains the words text/CSS, are a heads up to the browser. They tell the browser that what lies between the tags is going to be in CSS. Remember that we have encountered an attribute before. That was in the image tag. We had an attribute there specifying the source, the URL of the image file. Attributes are a way of specifying additional information about an HTML tag. And that now gets us to the meat of the CSS, which is what lies between those style tags. CSS looks weird, and that's because it's a completely different language. It has absolutely no resemblance to HTML. This language is a different language again and has its own different and rather arcane syntax. Let's parse what we see here and hopefully it'll make more sense. Remember that a style is a rule governing the appearance of an HTML element. Well then, the first question that needs to be answered is which HTML element? And that's the first part of the CSS. The word body over there, which is highlighted, indicates that it's the body element of the HTML that is going to be governed by this particular style or this particular rule. Again, the first word of the style gives you the name of all HTML elements that are going to be governed by that particular rule or style. Now it turns out that in this case, the HTML has only one body element. But let's say there had been a whole bunch of body elements. All of those body elements in the HTML would have been governed by this particular rule. And here now is what this page looks like when we open it in a browser. As you can see, its appearance has been transformed. It's virtually unrecognizable from the HTML that we just ran in example 1. The most noticeable difference is in the color. And that's because in our style, in our rule, we had specified a background color that we would like to govern this body element. Here, the background color that you see over there on the right, which is the hash DE1515, is the hex code for a specific color. This specific color applies to the background. There is also a color for the foreground, i.e. for the font, and that we have just specified to be white. And that's why all of the font is now white on a red background. We also specify a couple of margins, margin top and margin left. You can see on screen spatially what these mean. The 32 and 44 pixels represent the distance from the body, the text contained within the body element, from the top and the side of the browser. We also have padding. Padding, which here is set to 12 pixels in all 4 directions, corresponds to the gap which is to be left between the text and the element which is contained within. And lastly, we have the font or the font family, which we specify here to be Arial. And that's why this page looks the way it does. It now has a red background, a white font from the family Arial, and it's padded and nicely aligned on the page. And this dramatic transformation in the appearance of our page was occasioned using this relatively simple bit of CSS that you see on screen now. CSS is often derided for its arcane syntax, which folks find really confusing. It's neither hierarchical, clearly like HTML, nor is it like a traditional programming language like JavaScript. It's kind of its own special thing. You just have to get used to it. But once you understand how it works, you can do a lot with just a little bit of CSS code. Hopefully, this example has demonstrated that.